Jacob's Law, once again, saying, do not do something different than what everybody else does. Risky Biscuit. I think at the core, though, is that people want things to work how they expect. Expectations build over time, having experienced things. Exactly. So, let's talk about this screen here. We are presented a map, and we have little dots moving forward. We have our character that's constantly moving. The character constantly moving, I think, is actually kind of an important design principle here. The fact that it's constantly moving cues our brain into thinking, I don't have to move this guy. And it brings us into Jacob's Law, where we start to think intuitively, I click on these things. I'm not going to use WASD to move around. I'm going to click on them. And then we use our mouse, and we mouse over one of these icons, and we get the signifier pop up, right? It enlarges, it grows, we get the text underneath it. We are now 100% positive we click on these things. If they had said you have to use WASD or you have to use the arrow keys to move different nodes, it would have been a point of frustration every single time people came into this. Jacob's Law. Also, I'm just noticing these little wiggle animations in the background here. That's just adorable. And probably, 2 frames, and they're probably doing it programmatically? Neat. Depends. Tell me about depends. Battle start. Here we go. So, once again, we have icons. You're expecting to click on them, right? They could have said, use numbers 1, 2, or 3. Instead, they did the smart thing, which was you click on them. Jacob's Law. Use the interaction pattern people are familiar with. I would do both, have click and WAS movement. And that's okay, you can go broader, but the point is you have to have at least the common interaction method, right? If you only had WASD, that would be a problem. But if you were on a controller, as you're saying with Super Mario World, exactly, now all of a sudden you're expecting to hit the arrow keys to move around. It would be weird if hitting the arrow keys brought up a mouse cursor that you had to maneuver, right? Jacob's Law. I agree that nowadays most people would probably expect a click. Yeah, so this is one of those kind of self-evident truths that people, they tend to get on their own, but at a subconscious level. And it's powerful when we bring it into the conscious realm so that we can leverage it correctly when we need to. Peripherals, generational norms play into it too. Exactly. So that's the point. Users spend most of their time on other sites. That means that users prefer your site to work the same ways as all the other sites they already know. They have to already know it. So if peripherals are changing, generational norms are changing, then their understanding changes, right? Let's get a rotation in. We're going to mirror. And then end the turn. Man, that poison builds up. My goodness. Oh, and we can change our lo-fi beats off. There we go. Nice. Yeah, there we go. That was very, very confusing, soundscape-wise. My goodness. And then if we do a normal hit, that'll kill him. There we go. Ta-da! Now, once again, we have this thing here. Once again, it looks like a button, right? They did that very well. Once again, they could have done numbers. They could have done, any other sort of interaction method. This is one of those things that feels very simple and obvious. And a lot of the times it is, but sometimes it's not. I can't tell you how many times, as a designer, I have been in a critique with some other more junior designer, and they're pitching something, some design that they have made. And it always comes back to Jacob's Law. Like, why are we using a checkbox here instead of what people are used to doing on other areas, which is this interaction method instead? It's important to be aware of it, and it's easy to fall afoul of it. So, these are cursed items. Once you equip them to one of your monsters, you can never unequip them. But they're really good. Unequip revives and or fully heals the whole team, plus 30 gold. grants an equipment slot to all the allies? That sounds bonkers. So you consume a equipment slot on one and then gain 2 extra. So it's a net gain of 1. That's kind of cool. Let's go get our last Chimera. Ooh. This guy's cool, but I've already used him, and I don't think he fits well with our theme. So we're going to go look to another shrine. Meantime, be back in a bit. No worries. Take care, Risky Biscuit. Best of luck in the meeting. Let's get this pile of gold. And then we can go to the fight. Now, once again, they're using a lot of very clever design here to indicate things that adhere to Jacob's Law. We have these icons here that are sparkling, and that may be dangerous. You may be calling too much attention to them. So what do? They fade it out and make everything monochromatic. So everything you haven't explored yet, you can't interact with. There's no signifier. You can't mouse over it and get any feedback. All of that tells us we can't click on anything. And thankfully, when we click on it, you can't do anything. It would have been a little weird if you could click on it and it takes you like along the path to try and get to there. Like that would have been weird. Even if it's maybe convenient for a power user, it's weird to Jacob's Law. It's in 30 minutes, I'm good? All right, well, we'll have you here for the next little bit. And we'll head out before the next ad break. We'll do a raid. Oh gosh, I hate this guy. Rotate, and then we'll mirror. We gotta sleep on him, that's good. Smack. He uses his entangled. We hit end turn. Now, this is another indicator of Jacob's Law, right? This guy here, this is Jacob's Law. You expect things that are less important, like settings and everything, to be in the upper right. That's how we have all come to interact with technology, and they knew that. They put the speed setting and that up there. The speed setting is also visible. They could have hidden it in the settings, right? They could have had it in options. But most other games of this type have a speed setting up here that you can shortcut to. So what do? They keep it. They keep the good ideas that people are already used to. I feel like an X on the used items would be better for having been used. Which items are you talking about? The dice? So like putting an X right there? I could maybe see that. It's an interesting consideration to think about on the map. Oh, instead of kind of putting that black mask on top. I could see it. The thing is, it's still interactable. Yeah, that's an interesting point, Risky. Let's talk about that. Let's take a screenshot here. And let's go into Figma. And let's see what that would look like, right? So, here we have our game screen. Let's say if we had already visited the campfire, we got an X. Let's explore this. And we'll even do like a drop shadow to kind of keep it standing out a little bit. Let's pump up the opacity, make sure we can actually see it. There we go. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more pronounced. Whatever. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be good. We're just getting a mock-up, right? So we've got the X there. That reads visually. You think it's pretty clear already, says K Hadel. Could be. I mean, they've done it. It's worked. You know, it's been a success. Commercially, they're doing good. I think an X on it would look like the path has been closed off. That's a good point, Mothman. It could be. Could be, I think, you know what? I can't go here anymore. I don't think that's a mechanic in this game, but it's an interesting point. Where my head went is kind of visual noise. All of a sudden, there's a whole lot more stuff. And if you go to all these things now get X's, right? We've got, and then what happens with these little nodes here? Do they get X's as well? That's a lot of repeated symbology. And that is a design principle. Repeated shapes can make things look better. However, if that shape is meant to convey information, then all of a sudden we're mentally processing this in a heavier way. We're analyzing all that, right? Whereas I think without it, it's a little bit easier to just ignore. And I may be wrong on that. There we go. I think it's easier for my brain to just ignore these guys instead of those big X's that are high contrast. You wouldn't necessarily need high contrast. Like to do something in good faith, right? You could play around with the design. So it's, you know, just in the kind of the corner, right? But also the red X does indicate bad, right? It indicates negativity. And it's not that this is bad, it's just done. Maybe something like having the colors change to grayscale would help it to be clearer. So the problem is they're already doing that over here, right? For stuff you can't reach yet, there's already the monochromatic scale. So if they changed these to be grayscale, there could be an interference signal, and that's another design principle, interference signals. That's if you say red light means go. That's an interference signal. So let's try checkmark. Risky Biscuit says, try checkmark. Let's try it out. Bloop, 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 bloop. Oh, and we got to get our effects on here, too. Bring that up a little bit. Make the blur a little bit stronger. There we go. What is happening with this shape? Why are we being so weird? Whoa, whoa! What's happening? Did I change? Yeah, I did. Put it on the inside? Outside? No? Hey, why are we not selecting things correctly? Weird. All right, that looks good enough. Okay, so we have the check mark. I think it was inside of a group. That was our problem. Lock. Okay. So, if we put this guy down here, what happens? Would make them grayscale and maybe a grayscale halo. Interesting. That may get confusing with the icons that aren't colored in yet. Yeah, Mothman. That's kind of what I was meaning. Yeah. Give them a red overlay. That's another possible option. But once again, red means bad. We're not necessarily meaning bad. We're just meaning done, depleted, right? Red might mean like, oh, this has been refreshed. Now there's a fight here or something, right? Interference signals. So, at the end of the day, I'm not convinced adding another icon is a better solution than what they found. White checkmark? Let's try it. Let's try a white checkmark. Come on. Whoa. Sometimes my mouse like double clicks. It's kind of frustrating. And let's use the same white that they're using. There we go. So we get a little bit of color palette cohesion. I think that looks closer to done. That's probably the closest thing I've seen to done that we've explored so far. Put the icons within a circle or something instead of having them just be outlines of the objects. So like, are you saying Ameripon? Bring this up. There we go. You know, something like that. What if we do subtract? And then change the white to this. Is that really the right white? That can't be right. Wow, it is. That's so much grayer than I thought it was. My goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not getting anything from this that I don't already get from kind of fading it out. But that's just me. If it's been completed, it could turn into the basic gray circle, but otherwise, I think what they did was fine. Oh, I see what you're saying. So, like, have Like, this is now just this guy. Bloop. Right? So the nodes kind of turn into that, saying this is empty. So that's an interesting point, actually. That's a really interesting point. Why didn't they just do this? Why not? Do we feel that having these things being present but disabled is giving the viewer any new information, giving them any information they need? I don't know. I think that's an interesting question, though. Pencil scratch out, possibly. Yeah, like a... let's get the pencil, just kind of like a, sort of a thing. Maybe. Once again, then you're obscuring this information. Maybe they have a good reason for keeping that information. Just another thought, if the resource is depleted, maybe switching out the icon for one of those circular nodes would work. Okay, we got to that. Hard to explain without just editing it myself. Probably, yeah, Maripon, yeah. I love that sticker art. Yeah, right? It's very charming. It fits in with their brand that they're going for. I think original looks best, says K Hedao. Hello, K Loon. Welcome in. Thanks for coming in. We're doing an analysis of the wonderful game Dicefolk, and we're trying to figure out why did they take certain design decisions that they made. So we're playing around with what different options might look like for navigating their map and everything. Welcome in. I'm glad to have you here. It's nice to know what you've encountered. That's closer to what I was thinking. Okay. They should have, like, Slay the Spire, where they have crosses over them. Tell me why you think that, Jack. I was thinking the same, but misunderstood what you were saying. Okay. So, like, I'm curious about the crosses thing, because if I take all these, we'll group all those together, hide them, and then we go into this group, which is not displaying for some reason. Why not? Oh, that's why. Oh, you guys need to leave that group. There we go. So now we have the X's there. We were talking about interference signals, and that red color makes it seem something bad is happening there, or someone said you might be blocked off from that route, which I think was interesting. Ariel, gotta go. Hopefully next time I'll be in a more productive mood. No worries, Ariel. You take the time you need to process things. You've got this. We're reaching out for you and wishing you the best. Yeah, sending lots of hearts your way. Live end the game. The crosses don't work because you can back travel here. If it was purely forward movement, that would be fine. I think that indicator meaning that it is a blocked off path is an interesting point. And I could see that being a common interpretation. I didn't mean like a cross by the side, but like with a similar brownish color with a cross through the entire icon. So if we do, let's copy paste, grab this one, scale everything up, change the color to be one of their browns. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Bloop, bloop. And obviously this isn't as good as if, their artist did it, but we can get kind of an idea, right? And just to see how it would look like in full color, we'll put that over there. I mean, you lose the red, so you lose a bit of the interference signal, and that's good. But I still think it's a lot of visual noise. I think it's just a lot to have to, process. There's a lot of lines, a lot of contrast. Once again, I don't know that this is any better than what they did. And this is simple. And it does let you know what you've done. And I honestly, I don't know that really matters. I think the most compelling thing that has been discussed was the node, replacing it with a blank node. Excuse me for hitting the microphone. Replacing it with a blank node. I think that's possibly the most interesting thing. But Okay, so some things you do lose is you lose this feeling of progression. Like, I have cleared all this out. If it gets replaced, then the map just starts to look kind of boring when you go through everything. I like it like that because it gives the immersion of the player crossing them out of the map in game. I could see that. And I think there's something to be said there. It wouldn't surprise me if they had discussions in their design studio of how much like a map do we want this to feel? I think that's an interesting point. Yeah. I do still think you'd need to put the black mask over it, because if I do this pencil here, it's still kind of hard to read, right? Let's put our drop shadow on there even, make it stand out, and we'll even like make it, I don't know, this white color. Like it's still, it just doesn't read very well, right? It's a little bit better if we move it on top of the desaturated thing. But then again, like, why not just remove it? Do we lose anything if we remove it? You lose a little bit of that whimsy, but this isn't really where the game happens. They don't want people to stay here for very long. They want this to be legible so people can move into the real game, which is the dice. In hindsight, the color of the icons contrast too much to have the crosses, I think. I think that's where I'm landing. But I love this discussion because I think we got a lot of interesting points out of it. And by trying out things that didn't work as well, we learned a lot about why they went the direction that they went. And we learned about what things may not work for our games. And I love that. I love those sorts of discussions. Thank you, all of you, for bringing up your great points. Okay. That's Dicefolk. That was a little bit of Jacob's Law with Dicefolk. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, all of you, for being here. It's been a wonderful day. I hope you're all making wonderful progress on your projects. I got to keep working on this thing off stream because y'all talk too much, and I love talking with you too much. So we're gonna raid out. Oh dear, and now Twitch has to completely refresh. Check out the Slay the Sprite map first, please. Let's check it out. Browser. The Slay the Spire map. So yeah, they do that little circle. I see what you're saying. Yeah. That does have a circle. And I think that goes to the point that people have made in the past of this works because you don't ever go backwards. Whereas in here, you can retraverse different areas. So they wanted a more open approach. They didn't want you to have to pick between different options. They wanted every option that you've discovered to be available. And I think that's showing how that influences the way you present things.